Hello.
Hi.
How's it going? Rob's peeing.
A little bit of an announcement there.
He heard there was a pool nearby that needed to be taken care of, so he was on it.
I'm an idiot. I had myself muted on my stream. So we're starting off today with 100% potato.
Wow, potato.
Oh,
Big time potato.
Nice.
But yes, welcome chat to Two Girls, One Rant, where today's topic is teaching. Because to me, I feel like this is a majorly underrated profession that is not given the credit that is due. And I personally come from a family of teachers, and we've kind of seen collectively how that respect has gone down and the struggles have gone up, but there's still a lot of upsides to teaching. So we want to kind of discuss all of that today. And welcome back, Rob.
Hi.
I found the perfect picture for you for for the podcast. I forgot to ask you ahead of time for it.
Oh no, it's gorgeous.
So I did a Google search and this came up from your Twitter feed. And I thought it was perfect.
Yeah, I really want this engraved on my tombstone someday, so.
I want it engraved on mine.
That would be amazing.
Rob is a flower, a precious flower.
All right, so obviously everybody here knows Mr. Robsax. So Rob, do you want to tell us, for those in the channel who don't know you, like what grade and subject do you teach?
I'm a director of bands for a high school. It's a 5A high school, so I teach 9 through 12. But I'm certified in music K through 12 instrumental, and I've taught middle school. My first job was teaching at a middle school and assisting at a high school, and I did that in Oklahoma. And then and I did a little bit of that in my district, but they do things a little bit differently, basically, and they kind of they really base it more off of like what the kids register for. So now that I have like a full schedule at the high school, they pulled me from the middle school, and it's actually not a good thing. So we're in the process of fixing that again, so that I can be back at the middle school too, and the kids have more of a comprehensive band experience from 6 to 12 is what we're working towards. But I'm also currently working on my master's. I'm almost halfway through a master's of music education.
That is a lot. Plus the family and streaming on top. You have one busy schedule.
That's for sure.
Mrs. Sachs is very, very supportive of you from everything I've caught. So.
Oh, yeah.
No, but I think that's great because, I mean, I actually started band in 6th grade as well. Oh, no, 5th grade. Sorry. You know, and that's something that stuck with me all the way till I graduated.
Yeah, it seemed, I mean, it's when you really think about what band is, it's kind of weird, but like I've never met a person that was like, oh yeah, I used to be in band, man, I'm really glad I stopped playing my instrument. Like I've never met anybody like that.
No one said that.
Yeah,
I have, but they sucked, so.
Yeah, you didn't like the experience, but you probably wish you played the instrument some, right?
Well, I mean, me personally, I loved band. I played the tuba. It was great. Like, you know, but there's a couple of kids in the band that I ran into, and I mean, they were in there because their parents made them basically, and they couldn't quit it because their parents spent this money on a trumpet for them, and like they weren't very gifted or motivated, and it was a rough time for them. It was sad.
It's a different experience for something like that, because I was also pushed into taking a music of some sort, and I did piano for like a decade, and I was forced to do that. But at the same time, now I wish I held up to it. I wish I continued it. So maybe it's more just like years down the line, you wish for that.
I mean, I really enjoyed it. I mean, to a certain degree, it also instilled some discipline because you had to make sure you got your other schoolwork done. Plus, marching season comes around. I mean, you have to make sure that you're learning everything and you're taking care of yourself because you want to be a good representation around in front of everybody else, not just the audience, but everyone you're with. I only quit for one semester, but that's a whole nother story. Our director was doing some things that he shouldn't have been doing with some students, and he was He was cocky,
Yeah.
favoritism, and I had reported him, and we had a shouting match, and I walked out. But the music itself was, I enjoyed it.
Hmm.
Jeez, I hate that. Yeah, and what's sad is you hear that a lot with like coaches, directors, anybody in that kind of that dual role of like teachers, coaches, and mentors. That's just for some reason, that's unfortunately where you see a lot of that stuff, and you have to watch out, really, really study the teacher and the coach and make sure that they're on the up and up.
They're fair.
Right, because I mean, at first he was doing really great, but we doubled in size because he had that kind of magnetic personality, and that kind of popularity went to his head. Because I mean, we went from a band that was hardly anything, maybe 40 students, to 3 different band classes, and combined we were about 150. We even got to march in the St. Patrick's Day parade in Chicago. We got invited to march down Epcot in Disney, and all of that accomplishment for a very small town in northern Wisconsin went to this guy's head, and he messed up. But our other guest today is Miss Sofa.
Hi, I'm Sofa.
So Sofa, tell us about yourself.
I've been teaching for about 6 to 7 years now. I originally started at a middle school for about a month until I realized and I was told that I had to have a teaching certificate of some sort. So left there, went to high school after I got it, and been teaching science. And I teach out in the kind of the western portion of major city in Arizona. So very low on the educational side of the spectrum, but still there, still teaching science, still very passionate about it. And yeah.
Now, do you teach all of the subjects for science, or do you concentrate on
one.
specific ones?
Just one. I teach more of the environmental sciences.
Because you were supposed to have like a forensics class, but they canceled it on you, didn't they?
Yes. It was because they needed other staff to help with the students, the amount of students that needed to take the class. So they closed a couple other science classes in order to balance things out and move the students.
Well, because in our curriculum, environmental science was a requirement for graduation.
Wasn't when I was in high school. It was, you had to have some kind of biology, some kind of life science. You had to have a chemistry, and then a third year, which was one of the two, or like a physics. But it changed, I guess, in the past 10 or so years, and it's starting to move in a direction where you have to have 3 sciences before you graduate high school. And within my district, you can have the option of taking my science class, but it's not going to be considered college accepting credit. Like, big universities won't accept it as a science.
That's a bummer.
I know.
So MamaDingo is not going to join us on voice today, but she has provided me with some answers to the questions we're going to ask today.
She's provided a written statement.
She has provided
her
a written
experiences.
statement. Yes. Okay, so MamaDingo is actually my mom, and then Tequila is not able to join us today either, unfortunately, but she teaches high school math further south of here. And she's got and Tequila is actually the 4th generation teacher in my family. So we have some insight from what it was like in our parents' generation for teaching. In addition to the modern day with Sofa and Rob. So
Nice.
I guess the most important question of the day: what made you? Well, I shouldn't say make, but what inspired you to become a teacher, as well as the grade and subject that you focus on now? So either Sofa or Rob, whichever you have an answer first. Go ahead.
Rob, you got an answer? You want me to go first?
You go first.
Okay, so basically when I was in college, it was very difficult to get a job right outside of college, and I was always told that, because if you go into a certain career, there's just a challenge right after college. So when I was in a job fair at my university, there was a lot of teaching jobs being offered, and there was a lot of like little booths for different districts. So I put my name in the hat for a few of them. I got an interview on the spot for one of them, and this was the middle school. And then because I didn't get everything done with the middle school, I actually, right after I left that job, I got a call from another district, which is where I'm at now. It was never an anticipation to be a teacher. My mother's a teacher. She's been a teacher, and she knew she wanted to be a teacher when she was in high school. So she really she gave me a lot of recommendations. She kind of pushed me in that direction, just knowing my personality and knowing who I am. She kind of pushed me to be a teacher in some ways and towards this job. But originally it was never a plan. It was just more of the opportunity of a job right outside of college that I didn't expect. So, and here I am, 67 years later, according to Dave here. But yeah, 6 to 7 years later, and I'm glad that it's something that's stable. That's one of the benefits. It's required, it's stable. You're never going to be without a job. So I haven't left since.
So you're enjoying it now.
That's questionable.
Well,
There's moments.
Yes.
We'll go into some questions regarding that pretty soon here. But Rob, what about for you?
I kind of figured out that I wanted to be a band director like really early. I want to say it was like 7th or 8th grade, like really early.
Wow.
I went from being like a kid in elementary school that got bullied all the time, to, because I was like the little poor kid that like lived outside of town, like on a 11-acre farm. We grew hay, which is just grass. It's like high quality grass.
Yeah, but highly needed in winter for your animals.
Yeah, and we had a few horses and dogs and all that. And so so I was kind of like that kid. I didn't really like care about my hair or like what clothes I wore. So I got bullied. So when I got into band, that was 5th grade for me as well. We had elementary school band, and that definitely helped. But I think once I got to junior high, which was 7th and 8th, now they do 3 grades a lot of times, but 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. But my life just improved at school quite a bit, and I had a really passionate band director then too. He was a great guy. He was older. He was one of those that like rotated music, so he was never learning new stuff. It was like he would do one tune, a couple tunes with a group, and then 3 years later he'd do those same tunes, which is crazy to me now. I can't imagine doing that. But anyway, it was just a nice place for me, and I started getting involved with like the high school stuff. Also, about 8th grade, I would go to the park, and I would see this professional big band, and they would play at the park every summer, like 2 or 3 nights a week. And it was like I said, jazz big band, and I would go and watch. And me and my buddy were brave enough to go and approach them one time, and then they allowed us to start going to rehearsals. They had rehearsals on Wednesday night, and I started getting hooked up, and then next thing you know, I'm an alternate. Next thing you know, I'm in the band as a freshman, and it just kind of took off. So I was just I was all about it, and I was passionate about it, and I had 2 really good high school band directors. One had retired after my freshman year, and we went to New York and played at Carnegie Hall and all this amazing stuff. And then the second one now has one of the best bands in the whole country. So, and she was amazing as well. So yeah, it was just a huge part of my life. It was a positive change, and I got passionate about it and decided really early on. So
that sounds like some amazing opportunities.
Yeah.
Is that like one of those community bands or like something else?
Yeah, I mean, you could call it that. I mean, they definitely would go around and gig. So I live in a city, or close to a city, and did back then too. And so, there's always like professional jazz groups around our city. And so this was one of those, but they did kind of like, free concerts in the park as well. And so, yeah, it was really great. I got to know all those guys and gals in there. One of them was one of my elementary teachers. He played bass trombone. And so I just kind of skyrocketed in ability because I was just put around professionals really early on. So
surround yourself with the people that you want to be like.
Exactly.
It seems like the phrase I've heard a lot, or at least when it comes to people who enter teaching profession, that one teacher made a difference in your life and you want to do the same. And that seems like that's what happened with you. You really connected with that music teacher and you wanted to do the same.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, and for this question, I do have a response from MamaDingo. She says, well, after the twins were born, the twins being Tulio and myself, she decided to take the advice of family and friends who kept telling her that she was a natural teacher. And since her parents were teachers or had been teachers, she figured that they might be right because she liked helping kids see the light. School was interesting in a lot of ways, fun, as she was rather older than her classmates at the time because she's going to school, back to school at that time with people right out of high school, and here she is with 3 little ones.
The non-traditional student is the best student, if you ask me.
Right. She got her degree in elementary and junior high aged youngsters. And honestly, like I did work when I went to college. There were a couple people that were at least 20, 25 years. Hell, one was even the father of one of my classmates. And I ended up tutoring some of these guys, and they were more dedicated than some of the kids that were coming out right out of high school into college. That's Mama Dingo's experience. Why she decided to become a teacher. And let me tell you, she's good at it. Because a lot of I end up teaching at my work, even though I'm not an actual teacher. And I'm told that I'm really good at it. And that's because I learned the hows of different approaches and different ways of teaching to connect with the person that you're with. And I learned all of that from MamaDingo.
Mm-hmm. It takes someone with that experience to show and explain how to do it. Even if you're not actually a teacher or a professor, or even in anywhere near the teaching field, it still helps with just the instruction aspect to help others to do that.
Yeah, because nobody has the same learning style.
Exactly.
It's like growing up in a house with good cooks too. You know, a lot of that stuff rubs off on you. You know.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Destiny, do you have the next question, or should I continue down the list?
You can continue.
Okay. How's the head?
It's actually getting worse, but I'm okay.
Okay, if you need to tap out, that's okay.
Nope, we're good.
All right. So the next question I have on the list here is, what do you find hardest about your job? And if you two need a moment to think about it, I do have MamaDingo's answer too.
Let's hear MamaDingo's, and then we can compare with the timing.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm sure it's changed over time, but not all that much.
With what I see of her answers so far, because I haven't read through these fully, I don't know, it might be similar. So she says, hands down, it was the parents that didn't seem to care or refused to help their children with assignments. The parents of a child that couldn't sit still to allow them to learn no matter what we attempted to do in the classroom. I guess one father point blank told them that he was just like that, and it was normal for a kid to stand up and move all the time, as the father was pacing the room himself. The ones that could be helped with a bit of medication, and the parents wouldn't even allow a workup, so the kiddo would get more frustrated every year, and then the child just gives up. She was telling me one story about there was a kid who was very ADHD and wouldn't sit down in his seat. And he wanted to be a good kid. He wasn't trying to be a troublemaker or anything. So they made like a little loop out of duct tape, stuck it to the back of his chair so it would just hit the back of his pants. So you just get that little bit of tug or resistance as a reminder to stay in your seat. And the parents flipped out because the kid said, they taped me to my chair today.
Oh, gosh.
Some of them deserve it. It's fine.
But no, he wasn't actually taped in his chair or anything. But it was a unique little way of doing it that wasn't harmful to the student, as a bit of a reminder. But he was a kid who really did need some medication to help. And, the parents just seem to think that everything's okay. And it's not.
Yeah. I would say that it's pretty much the same now. There's still a lack of care on the parental side of things. Outside of that, I would say there's a lot more from when I was in high school to where I'm at now. It seems more business oriented, less focused on the teaching and the care of the kids and making sure they succeed, and more of how can we earn more money for the district? What can we use for more resources? How can we get more community involvement to get more of the funding that we need for the district and all that other stuff? So I find like the focus has been shifted, less about care and more about the greed, which has caused a lot of other problems on top of that.
Okay. What about for you, Rob?
God, where do I start?
At the top? I don't know.
It's the
you
list.
know, yeah, honestly, I think for me, one of the toughest things that I deal with, because, yeah, I mean, I've definitely dealt with parents that just kind of don't get it or they don't care. But a lot of times, like, I spend so much time with the kid. I'm not like a normal classroom teacher. So, and I have a lot of opportunities outside of like a traditional classroom setting to be able to kind of help the kid through some of that stuff. I mean, I've bought dress clothes for kids before.
Aw.
What's that?
Aww.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, you know, one kid, like, his house burnt down, and I brought an extra sleeping bag for him because we like stayed in a gym, you know, on a long like marching band trip, and like, you know, just like little stuff like that. It's not that kid's parents didn't really care, but they didn't think about like, hey, he's gonna have this, so he just like showed up without it. So, I mean, I deal with that stuff a lot. So like I said, it's a little easier for me, I think, because I just have a lot more time with them, and a lot of that time is not in a traditional setting. But I would say that the biggest challenge that I think I have is just the constant shifting of what's the best way to put this? Like the constant shifting of like what are expectations from a paperwork standpoint, from a we're doing this type of teaching now standpoint, and hey, we want to make sure that you have the autonomy to give discipline yourself. Well, what that turns into is like, we don't have your back if the kid's disrupting class. Like it's just a lot of change every year. It's like we have to completely redo how we do everything. We're gonna now we're gonna use this program to enter in grades and to, you know, do assignments instead of the one we've been using. You know, and the pandemic has only made this far worse. So there are literally things like I'm the band director, so I get a little leeway. I will be honest with you, I have not set up my Canvas for my class right now. So I literally have no way of like taking in legitimate grades at this point because I have worked.
Yeah,
I have worked 70 plus hours a week to just get the job working. And I just can't, you know, I just can't get all that done in that amount of time. Now, it's pretty easy. I basically just have to refresh what I did last year, and that's next on my list. And we don't do a whole lot of grades in the first part of the year in band anyway. But long story short, it's just like there's 15 things we have to log into every morning, you know, and what ends up happening is all these processes that they give us that are supposed to empower us and make our teaching stronger takes vital time away from the kids. You know, if you're in a 5-day week and you waste 10 minutes of every class for 5 days, an entire class period has been gone from that week. And 10 minutes burns like gasoline. Like at any moment, you know, you think about it, it takes probably 2 minutes to take attendance. Then, you know, if you do like the traditional like learning targets or stuff like that, and you know, you name it, acronym that we teach from, you do all that stuff, that's 10 minutes right there. So basically, instead of getting a 5-day week out of the kids, you know, you're getting a 4-day week. And the tough thing is navigating that in a band setting, because ultimately the more I talk and the less they play, they're not getting better. You know, they have to have that hands-on constantly. So I think it's that. I think it's just the expectations of what we're supposed to cover are so vast. I had a teacher friend post something. I might try to copy it and maybe post it in the Discord or something if you want me to. But like,
Yeah, you should. We have a Two Girls One Rant channel in the Ferret Pin Discord. You can definitely post it there.
it's like a list of like teacher duties and all the stuff that we're expected to do on a daily basis, like just daily, and it's unbelievable. It's like 90 processes.
Yeah.
And then once and then what's funny about that is that doesn't include any of my coaching. That doesn't include anything music. Like, it's just all the other stuff. So it's too much to do and not enough time. So we are constantly juggling what we know to be successful in the classroom and doing just enough of what they expect us to do to not get fired. That's the way I feel.
Yeah.
God.
And time is a huge, huge factor because we only have so many days in the year because they have to have breaks, they have to have holidays off, they have summer breaks or whatever. So we only have so many days, which means we have to cover certain standards, we have to cover certain requirements on top of these thousands of other tasks that we have to do within our time. So time is always a huge factor that we just don't have enough of. So I definitely can feel that with all of the requirements and things that we have to do just on the more task side, the clerical side, rather than the teaching side. We don't get to actually teach until later on in the class period or the class day because we don't have the time to do that. We have to take care of everything else first at the beginning and then go right into the teaching.
Which, that answer actually leads me into another question that I had for you, which is, do politics, I guess for the lack of a better phrase, between the school board and teachers make it hard to work efficiently? And by this, I mean, like, the kind of criteria that they're making you set for your class each year. So it kind of seems like that answer is yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When it comes to my science class, when I started teaching 6 years ago or so, I didn't have anything prepared. I was basically on my own because the other teacher that was there already teaching it didn't help me at all. They were just kind of doing their own thing. They were going to leave anyway. So they weren't really going to care about what happens to this other teacher that comes in to take over their classes. So I pretty much had to start from scratch. No curriculum, no standards, no knowledge of anything teaching, because this is my first year teaching. And I had to create everything. And I've been doing that up until now, which is actually like a full curriculum for this class that meets the standards, meets the state expectations, meets the district expectations. And because I've been working that. But yes, there is specific criteria, there is specific things that the district requires, the state requires that we have to uphold to, because it's all about the state test in the spring that we have to make sure everything is fixed and ready for.
Now, Rob, being that you're in a non-traditional classroom, do you kind of run into some of those similar things on top of what you have just described?
Yeah, yes, to a certain extent. So, we have like a district final exam, like a summative assessment, and then we have formative assessments, and they have to be written so that we can collect data, and they're just awful.
Mm-hmm. It's all about data stuff.
Yeah, it's just awful. It has nothing to do with their actual knowledge of what they're doing, and it's just it's a huge waste of time. I mean, going back kind of to what I was saying, I mean, a lot of times, you build up enough reputation in your school. I've got tenure now. I get to push back a little bit, and there's some things that it's like, yeah, I know I don't have that done, and I'm probably not going to get it done. So, I'm understaffed. I can't do it. So either you help me out here and you rehire me an assistant, because they removed my assistant after last year. They riffed the position along with 70 other positions across the district. So yeah, so we have a pretty big district, but it's a lot. And I'm like, you either get me that help or I'm just not doing it. And what are they going to do? I mean, they could fire me, they could let me go, but they don't want to do that. It costs them time, energy, and money to get somebody else. And then when you remove a teacher that's in high standing with the community, it's also very difficult. But I think that And I think that's really important too. It's pretty kind of off topic, but I've always tried to be my own advocate and make sure that I had a position or positioning of influence to where I was protected in jobs. Because I don't know if you all know this, but tenure now is basically what teachers used to have, which was just a series of due process that they had to go through in order to remove you. Before you achieve tenure in every district, and if I move district, doesn't matter how many years of teaching I have, they're not going to grant you tenure until you've been there. But before then, you are on a 1-year hire. So you have a contract, and once that contract is up, they don't have to give you any reason whatsoever to not rehire you. And in fact, it could be what would normally be considered, an unjust non-renewal or firing in any other profession. But in teaching, for whatever reason, it doesn't matter. I mean, they could literally tell you, well, you smell weird. There's nothing that you could do about it because you're on a 1-year contract. So now tenure is basically what we used to have. But not to get too far off topic, the one thing that I think has affected me the most is I was really excited when we started having the conversation about STEAM and not STEM, because we started going down this rabbit hole of, well, we're only going to do industrial arts, we're only going to do mathematics and certain other things, and we're going to kind of drop the arts as an important thing. We, states started doing the core standards and stuff like that, and then really drastically we realized that was a horrible idea. And so the government started talking about, well, it really should be STEAM, and the arts should be a part of that conversation. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's actually an official policy federally, but state to state, it's not like that. And in my state, it's not like that. And the funniest thing is we do a lot with STEM, and we do a lot with PLTW, Project Lead the Way. And basically it's trying to get these kids career ready. And we actually had somebody present to our board of education, and they said, what's funny is they're an alumni of my band program. I wasn't their teacher, but they're an alumni of the band program. And he basically told them, he's like, stop doing what you're doing. What you're trying to do is technically train these kids for my job. And guess what? It's not adequate. We have to retrain them anyway. And by the way, teaching them the technical skills and the actual processes of what we do, that's the easy part. Teaching critical thinkers, teaching motivated people, teaching kids that have leadership, have had leadership experiences. Those are what they need. You need to stop putting all this money here, and you need to put it in your band program, your choir program, your arts. Like, he literally said that, and they're like, okay, thank you for your time. And then we just doubled down on PLTW. So there's a machine that goes to this, and Sofa hit on it a little earlier too. It's kind of like the next new thing. You could add technology to all this. Technology is important, but technology is expensive. The reason we still have textbooks is because school districts can't afford to re-up licenses on teaching materials every single year. That's why we still have a book, because you can buy the book and you got it for 10 years and it still works, right?
Exactly.
But we have these multi-million-dollar contracts with technology companies for new software, for new equipment every year. 1-to-1 in a school, is it important? Sure. But think about how much of a drain that is on the resources of the building in the district. So it's like I said, there's a lot. But I think that I think the thing ultimately that affects me the most, I think would be that we're moving away from the arts, or we have, and some of us have not come back from that, and some have.
Well, and in a lot of jobs too, you need to have critical thinking in order to problem solve.
Right.
And the arts help you engage your brain in that critical thinking mode, and the more you do it, the better your brain gets at it. We were fortunate to have some technology classes in my high school before. Now, they're not there anymore, I don't think, but I actually was able to take 3 computer programming courses in high school, which is what helped me decide what I was going to go for in college. And I think it needs that full spectrum. I mean, it needs the arts for critical thinking, and technology is so much part of our world anymore. And you don't know if you need to get, if you want to get into it or not. Having that exposure in high school, to me, really helps, because they also had networking classes as well. And you don't necessarily have to spend a ton of money on those, But I do agree with like the licensing and everything else, because after I got my degree for computer programming, I actually did work for a software company for K through 12 school districts.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the licensing for everything that they had there, but then you also had licensing for in classroom materials too. I mean, it adds up for school districts where there's not a huge budget.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, and that's the line I'm trying to walk here. It's like, I know that it's important. I think the main gripe that I have is that there's a lot of districts, mine included, that are more focused on more of like a job training experience rather than teaching a discipline. It's like they're trying to teach a profession instead of a discipline. And a discipline covers multiple professions, you know, language arts, you know, English language arts. You need that for everything that you do. You know, mathematics, you need it for at least a part of it for everything that you do. It's a discipline. And, you know, there's, you know, the arts in general, disciplines. I think when we start getting, you know, like we have 7 fashion classes. And while I think it's good to give kids an experience in that, I don't know how many of those kids are going to be able to take what they've learned in that particular fashion class and apply it to their college or their, you know, design school. Like, you know what I'm saying? I think it's that whole idea of technical job training being done in a public education sector. I think that's the issue that I have.
And
Go ahead, Sofa.
I was just gonna say with my district, we have and I don't know if it's something that's just like in my area, in my state, I don't know, but I'm hoping it moves, because what we have is we have a very close connection with a career and technical education facility, and it works directly with certification processes. It works directly with professionals that are in the field, and it is one-on-one attention with these kids that are pursuing a certain field, a certain career, like veterinary sciences, automotive technology, fashion and design, like hairstyling. I mean, if they want to go in a certain career or certain path, they're these classes that are hands-on. They have materials, they have what they need from certified professionals in the field currently that are actually helping them one-on-one. And this is a class that they take, and they can get certification for it. They could provide them for, I don't know, an actual career, or they can go to higher level schooling and get more certification. But it's like that hands-on stuff. And I think it's more of that discipline that you're talking about, because it's going to prepare them for the actual future that they want versus just the classes they need.
And I think that the discipline as a high-level overview, to give you an idea, is what's needed at the high school level. Because the one problem that I found with most of my classmates is that they didn't know what they wanted to do after high school. They didn't know what they wanted to go to college for. And having that high-level overview to expose them to what kind of things are out there and available is great. You know, and if they're a kid that's really excelling at school, and they can, ours had a program where you could actually take time to go to the junior college, excuse me, and take some classes there if we didn't have any kind of equivalent in our high school, you know. So getting the more technical training for these different kind of jobs or services, that's where you go beyond high school for.
Right, and they have tech schools. You know what I'm saying? And I remember my high school that I went to, we had a vocational school, and it was really good. But what did they do? They hired, I mean, the teacher was a certified teacher, but he's also like a mechanic, like was an actual working mechanic as well. And they would go in for that class, and I think he only taught like 1 or 2 classes, maybe 2. And they would come in and they'd have automotive with him, but he was really a mechanic also. And that's really good experiences. But I think when they're trying to add so much into the public school and try and prepare kids for every single profession, well, you just can't. It's not possible. And we, you know, we're starting to see classes like, you know, pop up. I joke with the kids, but it's like, you know, talking about frogs 101, you know, Heads trimming 202. Like
It's
it's just
becoming like a community college where you have all these options, but there's no specific direction.
no, exactly. And in fact, we're, a lot of schools like our school, I mean, they offer community college credit, and which is great. I mean, I think it's fine, but we're getting kids that aren't ready for that. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
No, I completely get it. I had something and then it went poof.
Happens often to us.
It does. Because, like, Destiny, like, when you were in high school, like, did they offer a lot of these extra kind of specialty courses?
I think it depends on the area you live in because I live right by the beach. I live in a very populated area. Our classrooms are like stuffed to like 30 to 40 kids, which is terrible on the teachers. But we had VOTEC, we had ROTC, we had all sorts of different kind of programs for kids. And I went to a pretty low income area school, so even then we still had a lot of options. But it also just kind of depends on like I feel like and I don't know too much about teaching and I don't know too much about schools, but I feel like it also depends on like funding. So no, we had VOTEC. I remember kids would leave in the middle of the day, take a bus and go to whatever program that was. I was a very low attention kid in high school, so I really didn't pay attention. But yeah, no, we had them where I was. Did you say that you had them where you were, Mel?
Yeah, we had it because, I mean, it's a small town and they were really trying to encourage. Mama made the comment that in our area, the height of your life is your high school graduation. And unfortunately, up in the area where I graduated high school, that was mostly true. So they were trying to encourage kids to go on to the local tech college. Because that's something I think that they need to bring back is apprenticeships in trade schools.
Yes.
Because take my brother, for instance, like I can be in an in-person classroom, sit down, listen to the lecture, take my notes and everything, and I do just fine. That's how I learn. Tulio is very, very hands-on.
Mm-hmm.
He's very smart, but he's not good with lecture halls. There's a lot of students out there that need that hands-on learning, get into it, get into the meat of what you're trying to learn. Mm-hmm. So that you can see how it apply what you're learning, how it would apply to the job you want to do. And a lot of the trade schools and apprenticeship programs were a good way to transition you from your high school education to something for a career.
Right.
So you're not having to work, there's nothing wrong with working at McDonald's for your entire life if that's what you want to do. But a lot of people who want to better themselves and want to do something different, they need that opportunity.
And it's that hands-on approach and hands-on stuff that they need when it comes to kind of keeping some of that learning style.
And having an introductory course in the high school sports so you can have an idea if that's what you want to step into is great, but forcing a lot of classes like that onto the high schools, I don't think is appropriate because you have all these other things that you need to try and teach to get them through to fulfill the requirements for their diploma.
So here's a fun thing in my area. We have I read something recently where they've implemented letting classes go on Wednesdays early to help teacher burnout. Do you guys have any kind of things like that where you are?
Ours isn't for burnout. We do an early release Wednesday, but it's for our PLC time, which is so for remind me, is that Partners in Learning Community? What was the acronym?
Professional Learning Community.
Professional Learning Community. Thank you. We have so many acronyms that it's hard to keep track of them.
Yes.
But yeah, we do that, so it definitely doesn't help me with burnout. But yeah, the kids get let go early. But I know for a while when there were financial struggles in districts, they were doing 4-day weeks because think about it, your building shut down for an extra day, so the cost is less. But no, I've not heard about teacher burnout Wednesdays.
I haven't either, and in fact, I think a lot of schools, unless hopefully it's changing, but a lot of schools don't even consider teacher burnout. they know that's happening, but they don't do anything about it, or they just don't have the funding, or they just don't care. Because most of the time that we do have half days, days off, if it is an in-service day of sorts, unless it's a holiday or a national holiday or a break, anything that is required that we attend, it's for some kind of professional development or some kind of collaboration with our peers. And it's usually useless, and usually it's complete bullshit because we've heard it about 50 times already, but we still have to attend because it's required.
So taking a step back for a minute, there's something Mama posted in here that I wanted to read out. Back when Mama was in high school, there were shop and electronics classes, graphic arts classes, and females really weren't allowed to take them. Now, she did manage to take an electronics and graphic arts class after her father convinced him that it was needed for females. Now, my grandfather taught industrial tech. He taught college industrial arts and technology at the university level. And that just kind of shows, so I'm kind of curious, is there still that kind of division of what girls should take and what guys should take? Because when I was in high school, I was the only female in my programming classes in high school and in college. I was the only female to graduate with my degree in college.
I don't personally feel that way. And I kind of live in more of an area where it's like, I don't know. I think that I hate to use like political terms, but we're just a little, our area is just a little bit more, it's a mix of progressive and conservative. And so you get a good, healthy smattering of both kind of idealisms. We'll put it that way. But, yeah, I don't really feel that way. In fact, we now have, women's wrestling, and they do it with some of them do it with the guys. I think football does that too. And so now that's just kind of a thing. And like, it's not really been mandated by our state, but like we still have, all genders participating in pretty much anything that they want. Have you run across that, Sofa?
Honestly, I would say it's identical to what you just explained. We have a very mixed grouping of old school versus new school, and the fact that we're seeing a lot more women in a lot of men's sports. I mean, this year we actually have a few women on the male football team, and it's super surprising to see, just because I've never seen it before, but it's actually pushing in that direction, or we're seeing a lot more participation in that regard. But I think it's just now it's more open, and we're seeing a lot more participation from women in the courses and the sports, and especially in the school setting, that are not necessarily separate anymore. So that's just what I've seen.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, because the area I live in is highly conservative, which I've spoken about on a couple occasions. Mm-hmm. So my perspective of what I went through is not necessarily what's going on across the nation. And I think that, having a mix of progressiveness and conservatism kind of helps keep things balanced a little bit, so you don't veer off too far in one direction. But the fact that they're able to have a mixed gendered sports and classes like that, when it was traditionally guys do this class, girls do this class. Because Mama would tell me back when she was in school, like, the girls all had to take home ec classes. You had to learn how to sew. You had to learn how to cook.
Yeah, I think even by the time I remember that we all had to take it. Like, I took home ec. Like, we all had to take home ec, and we all had to take shop. Now, I don't think that I think home economics is called family and consumer sciences now, right?
I think so.
Fancy your name.
I've lost all track of what they're called, or now if they're even available anymore.
Well, that's like, you don't call them bus drivers anymore. You call them transportation specialists.
I'm not politically correct. I ain't doing that.
No. It's all right. But yeah,
no,
I
that
mean,
wasn't against you. That was against the people who push for that.
Hey,
yeah.
I'm a garbage man, and I'll always be a garbage man. I'm not no sanitation engineer, all right?
You're a
Sanity.
professional garbage transporter, okay? That's what your new title
No,
is.
Oh,
You
no.
gotta add like not to it, like an astronaut, like a sanitation-naut.
Yes.
Giant dumpsters of shit or not, yes.
But no, I think it's good. Like it's making the guys also take home ec as well, because I
Mhm.
mean, it wasn't required for us when I went through high school. But my brother, my mama taught Tulio how to cook, and I'm not that great of a cook. Tulio is actually really good at it, and it's something he's passionate about it at home too. So, it just goes to show that you can't be excluding genders in a class just because of traditional roles that come from the 50s and earlier on.
And these are skills that all kids need. You have to be able to take care of yourself and be independent.
I
This
want to,
is where
yeah.
they get those skills.
One gripe that I have is when they're like just learning how to cook, and like I have these kids like bringing me like cookies and cakes and all this stuff. It's like,
Yeah.
how are you're just gonna eat cookies and cakes? Like, can you cook anything else? They're like, well, we haven't gotten there yet. I'm like, just
Look,
just
Let me
cook
know
an
when you
egg.
get. Let me know when you get to the filet mignon section. I'll
Yeah,
take care of that.
Teach him how to boil noodles. Teach him how to
Yeah.
make
Put 'em
some
in
scrambled eggs.
Yes.
Well, and I mean, guys need to know how to sew buttons on too. Otherwise,
Exactly.
you're just
Well,
polluting
yeah.
the ocean.
So my grandfather, so mama's dad, he was a farm kid. He was the oldest of like 7 siblings. Lived on a farm in Indiana, and in those family settings, you learn to do everything. So he knew how to crochet. He knew how to sew buttons on. He knew how to bake bread. And to me, it's like those are things that you need to know how to do. It's not gender stereotyping that needs to be done, because it's a survival thing. A lot of
Mhm.
people will like, oh, the button came off of my pants, I'm just gonna throw them out. I bought a pack of buttons for your jeans at the store, put the rivet through and everything, whacked it once with a hammer. I'm like, okay, I just saved myself $30.
Exactly. These are life skills, not. And maybe they should rename some of these courses that are a little bit more centered on that conservative view, that old traditional view, to be something along the lines of needed skills that you need to be independent. Like just to make it seem like, yes, I need to take something like this as a student so that they get those needed skills so they can be on their own.
Yes, sorry, Mama says cinnamon. So my brother and I thought it would be really funny one time. Like, we thought it would make the chili taste even better if we put a little bit more cinnamon in it.
God.
I don't think my
Oh,
dad
no.
liked it, but we
Yikes.
thought it was all right. And I'm trying to remember, because I think she was starting to teach him like at 8 years old. So, mom's side of the family again, grandma was a home ec teacher, basically.
Mhm.
And so this was the whole measuring out, being exact, Betty Crocker type cooking. Grandma on the other side of the family came from a Mennonite family, so I learned the Amish style of cooking, where take a handful of this and a handful of that. Oh, Tulio thought it was the right spice.
Hey, see, I can see that difference.
But no, life skills like that. I mean, people need to know, because like kids now that are getting out on their own right out of high school, and they're, they can't cook for themselves. They're always ordering out, but it's so much cheaper to make some stuff at home.
Right. And would they survive on low nutrition diet? Yeah, but it's not good for you, and it can set you back. It can set your heart back. It can, we can have trouble thinking because we're not getting the right nutrients. So you need to know how to do some stuff.
And they
Yeah.
need to be able to support themselves, and they're not going to be able to rely on DoorDash and Uber Eats for the rest of their life, because they're not going to have the money to do that if their
And afford it.
health is
Yeah.
low. Right.
Or if you live in an area like I do,
Mm-hmm.
you really, like, we only got DoorDash a year ago.
Yep.
Go up further north to where Mama lives, you don't have it.
Right.
The areas are just too small.
Selective. Yeah.
All right, so let's move to what do you find most fulfilling about your job? And the usual answer I expect is, if I can just get through to that one child. Well, I know that that's part of that's a given for your profession.
That's a standard.
That's a standard. I mean, I don't know any teacher who goes into teaching without having this in mind. So other than that, what do you find fulfilling?
You want to go first, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, it's not even just about, I hate to put it, it really is the students though. There's not really much of a, I hate most of what I do, except for the kids. And I don't always like them either. No, they drive you crazy. It's almost like, your own kids, they drive you absolutely crazy. But at the end of the day, when, if you can make a small difference or get them on the right path, I think for me, it's just watching all of them grow. I definitely have had individuals. We had a young man. We did this show and had trampolines on the field, and this young man we'd be like teaching the kids how to march and stuff, and you'd hear somebody go ah, and like he'd fall, and it was kind of like an attention thing. Like he just did not. He was really struggling to like be a part of a group at all, and had never been a part of a group before. By the time that kid was, so literally I gave him a trampoline, and as a part of the show was like, just jump around, so that he wouldn't be marching. So he was like a part of the show, and it was really funny, and it was fun for him too, but it wasn't super high stress. And so we kind of like featured him like that. Well, by the time he left, and he was one of my best trumpet players, and he didn't know how to read music when he came into high school. And he learned how to read music. He took private lessons, and now he's at school, studying for a music degree, so
oh, nice.
So I think that's why a lot of teachers do go to that one kid thing, because that's just such an amazing thing that, you go in every day, you have all this crap that you have to do. You have all these gripes, you slog through a sea of just garbage just to try to squeeze every moment of teaching out. So I think when you do see that one really successful kid, it's like, wow, okay, I actually made a difference. But I like seeing them grow. I like seeing them do stuff without me. Like when we return from a game or something, and I leave my office and the band room's clean. Just when I know that I've passed on certain idealisms to them, we always say, leave it better than you found it. When they do that stuff on their own, I know that I've done something to help the world in general. Every kid that learns good stuff, it's going to go on and pass that off. So it's kind of I think it's the growth and the legacy that you leave because you put all of yourself into it. So seeing some of that payoff is the important thing.
Yeah, well, you got me there. I can't argue with that.
Well, you have to also think about, almost all of us have had a teacher growing up that we were like, man, this person changed my life. You could eventually change the direction of where someone goes. You don't know what kind of issues that people are handling at home. A lot of kids don't talk about what kind of at-home issues they're dealing with. And sometimes school is actually an escape. So sometimes these teachers can actually be super beneficial in the growth and development of a lot of students, because they look up to these teachers as mentors and guidance. Maybe their parents aren't existing or don't help at all or don't care about their development and growth.
Yeah. And that's why I think when it comes to the teaching profession, you're not just a teacher. You're a teacher, you're a mentor, you're a nurse, you're a coach, you wear all these different hats that are all these other, not just tasks, but just all these other positions that you are to these kids. And that's why it's not just teaching, it's all of them wrapped up together. True. But definitely when it comes to that rewarding feeling of when kids get it, when they are able to grow and you see that growth, because I know from when I started teaching, I had a class of freshmen, just one class. They were awful kids, but I saw them, most of them, graduate, and it's that feeling wow, I was able to get them to that point where they are walking across the stage and getting a diploma. So that growth is super rewarding. But outside of that, the biggest thing for me is just having them be able to come to me and just talk. Because a lot of kids don't get that. They don't have the chance to just like freely express themselves, tell them about their day, or to complain about another teacher, or to complain about work, or to complain about what's going on at home, because they're just not able to. They don't have that at home, or they don't have friends that they can talk to about that. So I feel like establishing that, building that kind of trusting relationship with the kids where I know that they can come to me, and they have, that I feel is the most rewarding, because they need that outlet.
Yeah, I've had teachers that have completely turned my life around, just growing up. I was a middle kid. Like, I didn't have a bad, upraising. My parents were great, but it was like, because I was a middle kid, I didn't get very much like attention. So I didn't get much like, hey, let's work on these kind of social skills, or this, that, and the other. So I kind of depended on friends to kind of help me get through a lot of stuff. But then you have teachers, and you get really supportive ones that actually give you individual attention, which is very hard with classrooms where I live, because it's like 30 to 35, 40 students per class.
Yes.
You don't get very much one-on-one time with these teachers, but sometimes they can see when you're struggling, and it's almost like they can sense that, and they come over to help. So that way, you can actually get through it, which is just, there's been many times where teachers have gone out of their way to try to help. And that's really important and underrated.
Oh yeah. There was one teacher that really helped me my senior year of high school. And he wasn't even one of my teachers. He worked with the students that had learning disabilities, which I wasn't part of. But he was an awesome guy. Like, two of his kids were actually, one was 3 years older than me, and one was in my grade. And like, I was going through some major health issues my senior year, and he shared stories with me, like how he had some childhood health issues that were very serious, and how he dealt with it. Because I was scared. Because I ended up with like clots in my lungs at 17. Don't know why. And nobody up there suspected that would even be the cause of what's hurting me. And, I didn't know how I was going to get through it. And I was anemic and missing school a lot. And, I don't want to be a disappointment and fail my classes and everything else. And he gave me so much encouragement several times a week and helped me get through. And like, he left a lasting mark on my memory, because there was other teachers that gave us a hard time from being from Illinois, because there's a huge rivalry between Wisconsin and Illinois, and I was proud of being from Illinois, and here are these teachers making fun of me. But then there's this other teacher that's trying to help me through with a serious issue. And I think teachers are massively underrated for having that ability to affect the students in a positive way.
We try.
You try. And for Mama, she's basically on the same lines as you guys. She says the light bulbs. She loves watching someone who you can just see it in their face, that the light bulb turned on and they get it. And helping like a shy kid, another one who's still in the shadows. They're shy, they're not sure what they're doing, they're kind of fumbling along, and helping them kind of emerge out of that.
Out of the social anxiety norm.
The social anxiety or whatever it might be, hoping to build the legacy. So there's that legacy word again, that there's no shame in not understanding if you're trying your best. And if the light goes on for you, you help someone else that needs it as well.
Yeah.
Yep, and you can definitely tell, whether it be on actual content or something that's needed in the class, or just like a life lesson, like they get it, and their whole face just lights up, and you're like, yep,
All right, so I don't know if you guys have ever seen the meme, but there was a meme out there, and it was two panels, and in one panel it was like, I want to say it was like the 1950s, and it was two parents, the student standing in front of the teacher's desk with the teacher at it. And, why is this grade bad? And the teacher is explaining it and instructing the parents of what's going on with the child. And then it goes to 2000, and it's the opposite. The parents are screaming of, why does this grade so bad? As if it's the teacher's fault. Because when I was in school, you respected your teachers. It was always Mr., Mrs., or Miss. And you always respected them and treated them well. And I feel like that dynamic has drastically changed over the last 2 decades. From your experiences, do you think that's true or false?
Totally true. Totally
Yeah.
true.
I kind of live in Karen land, so yeah, I kind of
Yes.
I kind of deal with it too. But I think I don't know. It's kind of hard. I don't know if it's any more. So I'm on year 10 of teaching. I don't know if it's any more now than it was. But yeah, there seems to be just a lot more of a unhealthy expectation of teachers to be all of these things just from everybody. And I think it comes from, well, I mean, I won't go too
Ignorance.
far into it. I mean, I hate to say it any other way, but you know, I had, somebody had posted this meme on Facebook about like, it was basically just like comparing like somebody who works at McDonald's and what they make versus what we make. And this guy chimed in. He was a care man, and he he chimed in and was just like, he just kind of started down this road of like saying kind of the age old things, and it was really like it was really eye opening to see this person kind of like say that like, no, being a teacher is like so much better. Like you get summers off, you get like he was just doing those kind of tropes that everybody kind of thinks about teachers, and they're just not true. So it really is. It's just ignorance to what it is. And I think that it's our job to help teach this generation. If nobody else will do it, well, then we need to. And it starts with the kids. And we teach them about, you know, I'm honest with my kids. I don't gripe about things in front of my kids, but I'm honest about, you know, about stuff. You know, when something upsets me, you know, I don't hide it from them. So I think it's important for kids to kind of understand that too. And I really think, I don't know, Sophie, if you feel the same way. I feel like my kids sort of understand, or at least act like they understand that being a teacher is a really difficult job. I also have the best kids in the school. I mean, so I'm at a little bit of a different situation. I don't have all of the best kids in the school, and I do have kids that are not the best kids in the school, but the majority of the kids are pretty mature. We'll put it that way.
Yeah. And I think it's helpful because your kids, they choose to be in your class, right? Like
For
they
sure.
select that class. Mine, they don't have a choice. It's
Right.
part of the direction that the pathways that what they call to get to where they need the credits they need. So my kids, they don't choose to be in my class. They only have one or two options, and this is the easier option of the two. I also have a lot of kids with behavioral issues. I have a lot of kids with mental disabilities. I have a lot of kids on the spectrum. It's just all over. It's a big hodgepodge of a bunch of different learning styles and learning methods. But without a doubt, I do see still a very lack of respect from them. Regardless of that, I see a lack from respect from parents, or a lack of actual attention and care and needed time from the parents. Like, I have a kid right now who is incredibly disrespectful, doesn't give a shit, just will not do anything. I've talked to the mom multiple occasions. Mom says she's going to do something, doesn't do it. And I think a lot of, because this is like our generation right now, because we're all kind of around the same age. It's our generation of kids that are having kids. So I think they're just not being raised right. I think technology is a huge factor. I think social media is a huge factor. And the push from Hollywood on social media is a huge factor. They're not they're not courteous, they're not respectful, and they're getting that from their parents who are not courteous and respectful. And I know that...
Oh, go ahead.
What? I was just going to say, I know that the pandemic and stuff in recent time has an effect on things, but it shouldn't affect your overall humanity of just being a good person.
A lot of these parents are expecting teachers to be babysitters, and that's bullshit.
That too.
They're sending their kids off to school, they're doing their jobs and whatnot, whatever they're doing, and they just anticipate you to develop their kids on your own. You are not their parents. You are a teacher. You are meant to give a certain curriculum to teach them on specific things, but you are not a babysitter and you are not their parent. And I think a lot of these parents that have this idea of like, you're the reason that my kid does not have straight A's. You're not teaching well enough. And they don't see that some of these teachers have 30 students to a class. How are you supposed to dedicate? And sometimes it's like, I don't know how your guys' classes are, but for where I live, you had each class was about 2 hours. So you have 2 hours to try to connect with 30 different people on sometimes several different subjects. So it's very difficult for you to actually have one-on-one time. And that's just my whole thing. Teachers are not babysitters.
We wear that hat too.
I completely agree. Because I mean, for the pay the pay is based off of the district and the funds that are available, for what they set for salaries. But for the amount of training and schooling that you have to do and to keep your certification and the amount of time that you spend, because you're not just there when the kids are there. There's a lot more involved in it than that. I think your profession is very highly underpaid, undervalued, and underappreciated, because when teachers have to teach students manners because their parents are failing to do so, there's a problem. When the teachers have to sit there and teach young children the basics of how to care for themselves because mommy and daddy aren't really home to make them a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. There's a problem.
I think there's a difference in today's society where they may not have both figures. They may have a guardian, they may have a grandparent, they may have one of the parents, they may have no parents. And I think that's becoming a lot more common than it was years ago when we were in school, when our parents were in school and their parents were in school. I don't know if it's just because of society's norms, but I'm seeing less and less actual parents, like two parents teaching the kids how to behave and then getting to school and they actually behave. Like
No.
that, like that progress.
Yeah, because I'm seeing a lot of these students that are going through school that the parenting thing is, oh, here's a tablet. Like,
Exactly.
there was no tablets when I grew up. We didn't have internet until I was probably in 7th or 8th grade. There was, and that was dial-up.
Yeah.
I mean,
Good old days.
but when I'm in Walmart the other day and there's a 3-year-old throwing a fit and dad's threat to the child in the store is, if you don't behave, I'm going to take your tablet away. Come on!
Yep.
I'm sorry, but like, our reliance on technology is too much. They'll sit the kids in front of TV, or they'll sit them in front of a computer or a tablet to distract them just to make their lives easier, when that's not what parenting is, and it shouldn't be on the teachers to do that.
Yeah, there's a lot of hands-off parenting going on for sure. And I think the other thing too, our kids are inundated with technology, and the current trend seems to be, just don't give a shit about anything. Like, just go to school, destroy things, hit your teacher. Like, there's TikTok trends of like assaulting your teacher. There's here's my favorite one. This generation is so freaking woke about everything. They're the first ones to, and I wear a mask every day. I've been vaccinated. I also had COVID and I still wear a mask. But these kids are talking about they go to all these events and they go to the school board and want mask mandates, and the same kids steal all the soap dispensers out of every classroom
and doors and toilets too on top of that.
Yeah, and so you're just like, oh yeah, you guys got it all figured out. I definitely do deal with difficult kids, and I always try to tell my students, like, I have, if you want to be an adult, I'm going to hold you to, adult expectations, and I'll treat you either like an adult or I'll treat you like a child. And it has to do with how you approach me. But, sometimes I get some of those, the others, like the kids that are in school that aren't band kids, one of them, I was passing them. I was on my way to rehearsal, and our band is really respected in the school, thankfully. And this kid, I passed him. He's like, "Are you the band teacher?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm the band director." And he's like, "You teaching them well?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I think so. I hope so." He's like, "Yeah, you better." I'm like, and I like turn around, I look at him, I'm like, "What are you, like 12?" I just turned around and kept walking. Like, sometimes I see these teachers just like completely lose their minds and try to like bring that up. And I always try to, number one, bring it down. Number two, I just try to, like, if someone's acting a little too big for their britches, I try to knock them down a little bit, because I mean, this kid is just obviously who the heck do you think you are? Like, So,
And unfortunately, a lot of the kids that are too big for their britches have parents that are in power, whether it be within the district, some kind of high community member, maybe a big funder for the district. So they kind of have their own way to manipulate those rules themselves.
So Zone Guide
Unfortunately.
here is saying that they began tasing the kids that steal the soap dispensers.
I wish we did that.
And T, what is this about you stealing the pens from fire extinguishers?
Allegedly.
The key word is allegedly.
Oh, so you got accused of it, but you didn't do it.
I didn't say that either.
Yeah,
I
basically.
was saying allegedly there were a lot of fire extinguisher pens that went missing at my school and the schools that we went to for, say, football games or, band contests, things like that. Because, I mean, they're there and, overall they're sitting in a cabinet. Nobody's touching them. Do they really need that pen in there?
God damn it.
That's
So-
what I say.
So
Allegedly.
I noticed a trend though from when I was in school to in a short period of time to when I was in high school, but the teachers could and couldn't do towards children. So the problem that I'm seeing now is, like you mentioned, Rob, of students assaulting teachers. Teachers more and more are not even allowed to touch the children. Even like, let's say there's a kid who really needs a hug. Some teachers are afraid to give that child a hug. Let's say you have a student who is going and wailing on people, other students or teachers. You have to very carefully, like, you can't full on restrain the students anymore. And they're taking away your ability for those dangerous situations.
I think, and we kind of touched on it a little bit with like coaches and band directors and stuff. I think it's a very fine line, because there are kids that never receive a hug from their parent. There are kids that are just, they're really, unfortunately, emotionally broken and traumatized. And they need someone in their life that is going to show them some sort of care and love. I made up my mind a long time ago that it is important enough to me that if a kid needs a pat on the back or they need a hug, that they get one. And I know that it's risking my job doing it, and I kind of don't care.
Yeah.
The other side of that too is that before I do any of that, the kids know me really well. They have a rapport with me. They understand that I care. I mean, I make actual comments about, we've had incidences in our building with teachers, and I tell them all the time, I'm like, you guys need to understand, you're like children to me, like, that's not, like, somebody who is doing that kind of stuff is sick. And if somebody's doing it, like, that is not a normal human being. And if that's happening to you, you need to come to me, because I will help you out of that situation. You know what I mean? Like, they just know, I have those conversations with them many times. They know that I'm an upstanding person, and, it's kind of like the other thing too is, if you go out for a beer with their parents, that kid you can pat on the back. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, you have to know where the lines are. You have to know what lines not to cross. There are kids that never, ever want to be acknowledged, touched, or anything like that, you got to know those kids. Don't
You
pat
gotta
them
read
on the
the
back.
room.
Yeah, exactly. Like you have to, but that's the thing. Being a teacher is a lot about knowing as much as you can about every single student, and the more you can do that, the less danger you're in on dealing with what you need to deal with. Now, my school does not have a no touching policy when it comes to physical fights. Now, I can't sock a kid, but
Well, yeah.
but I can grab them and pull them off, and have done so. A lot of times I'm really good at diffusing the situation. We actually had something about a month ago, and I took a hold of the victim, and he fought back, but I took a hold of the victim and I grabbed him. I was like, dude, you're bleeding. Like, you need stitches.
Oh my
Stop
goodness.
fight. I was like, stop fighting and come clean up your wounds and let's get you to the hospital. And it just, both of them kind of like stopped what they were doing. You know what I mean? Like, he had gotten, like, I guess he tried to dodge, and the kid hit his ear and had split the skin in front of his ear. And so, so it was one of those things, you try to bring it down other ways, but sometimes you have to physically intervene in between those two things, and we do not have that rule. Whatever is put in place to protect the students is what we're supposed to do. So
I know for younger children, one of the methods for intervening was because you couldn't just grab their arm and hold them back. So it was to actually kind of take your hands, stand behind them, and put your hands in their armpit and lift them up just enough so that they're on their tippy toes. So then they're having to focus on their balance and they can't really do anything else. But that was the only way that they were allowed to restrain them.
For the record,
for younger kids.
that works on short people too, and it really makes them mad.
Shut up. You're
short.
Shut up. I think I'm the shortest one here.
Probably.
I hate you both.
Well, all I know is that I think there is some kind of rule that we can't physically interact with the kids because we have had situations where it's gone too far. But I will still, if a kid is upset, if a kid needs that kind of support, it just overall just not in a good spot, I always say I offer my hugs. That way it's up to the kid if they want to hug or not. Okay, I know that I've had kids in the past, they will come up to me and they will hug me, and I am more than happy to do that. But if I know that there are kids that need that kind of pat on the back, they need that high five, they need that fist bump, need that kind of physical interaction, because it's just that confirmation, like, okay, either A, someone's there to support me, or B, I did a good job, I'm okay. And I feel like that's still needed. But when
it highly is.
That's important. I guess I should have mentioned that too. Like, I don't really initiate hugs. I'm the one that is receiving them. So yeah, I don't go up to a kid because it'll put a kid, even if you know the kid, like if they don't want to hug and you reach out your arms, it puts them in a really tough spot, because then they have to decide whether they want to make themselves uncomfortable to make you feel better, or or upset you, and they don't want to do that. Yeah, and that's one of the things that you have to understand, that you, whether you like it or not, are in a position of power. And so, there are small abuses of those powers that you don't necessarily think about until you've taught for a while. And then you start to realize, like, yeah, those are technically, they come from good intentions, but they're technically abuses of my power, because this kid is now put in a difficult situation and has to choose between your comfort or theirs. So
yeah, because I mean, you just look at the difference between Destiny and I on that. Destiny, I've heard you saying that you're not a huggy person.
No, absolutely not.
And I am.
Don't touch me.
I'm gonna get in your bubble, I swear.
No.
You said you would date me, damn it.
I'll run.
But no, it is reading the room. And I remember my mom telling me how she perfected the side hug. So she would stand side by side with the student and put her arm around the student on the side. Yeah. That was her way of dealing with it. But it is also reading the room, because I imagine Destiny as a student, no hugs from teachers, get away from me.
Well, when I was a student, it was like forbidden. Like you're not allowed to, especially in high school, because it's almost like they're too afraid somebody's going to make a report kind of situation.
Sure. There was always that
Right.
threat.
And that's what I remember. That's where Mama was coming from on that.
Yeah.
As far as the teachers go for interacting with children, and keep in mind too, this was not high school students. This was younger students, but it still holds true for high school students too. They still need that kind of interaction, that validation.
Yeah, and I will probably forever offer that, even with the kids that have left and like they come back and visit and stuff. I'm still very open with them too, and sometimes they'll just come up and hug me. But when it comes to other things like the fights and stuff, I know that it's really frowned upon for women to get involved in a fight, whether it be between two female students or two male or whatever the combination, just because of safety. But I also know that last year one of the assistant principals was fired because he prevented a fight, or he stopped a fight from happening, and he was let go because of that. So I don't know if there's some kind of whatnot regarding like who breaks up the fight. Does it have to be an SRO, like an officer on campus? Does it have to be a security guard on campus? Does it have to be between one person or another? Like, I don't know if there's specifics regarding that, but all I do know is that I've kept away from any kind of altercations, even if I know of something going on. Just step away, because I'm not going to get involved.
That's really sad.
Yeah.
Because
That
ultimately that's just it. Like if anybody's seen Squid Games, it's like, it's like when they turn out the lights, it's like you basically have now taught, that system teaches the kids that it's like, I have a good 2 or 3 minutes of just being able to actually do whatever I want.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing that I think is weird is like when kids fought when I was in high school, like they got arrested. Like kids are not getting arrested now. Like I was like, what?
They may go home for the day, but they're back the next day. You think that you're going to have the same beef with the same student the next day? Of course you are.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all going to be over social media. It's going to be 10 times worse, if not more.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's useless with what they do for their consequences and their repercussions now. That's nothing.
And I think it just puts you guys in a bad situation, because that's where I would get in trouble as a teacher. If I saw a fight starting to break out, I don't give a flip. I would be stepping between those students and telling them to back off.
It's like, it's like being a doctor too. When you accept being a teacher, you have certain responsibilities, and sometimes those responsibilities put you in danger in your profession. But it's like you have the responsibility of keeping the kids safe, and I would rather go out trying to keep a kid safe than standing by. I hate that you're in that position. So, and I understand your position too. Like I don't know. I'm stubborn about that, and I don't know. I don't know if I could work for a district that would do that. Like me personally, I wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah, and there's definitely an unsettling feeling when you go through and you work for the company or the district and you are with these kids and you really care for them, yet you feel like anything can happen and safety is definitely not a priority. It's very unsettling, and you really don't have to like look over your back, watch your back all the time. That's for sure.
Well, I think it's great that you guys, like, despite any kind of policies or whatever, like the actual giving the hugs to the students who need them too. I think the way that you approach it is really good. And it is sad that as far as altercations go, that the Sofa, that you're put into that kind of situation, because it's a catch-22. The parents are like, well, you're responsible for keeping my child safe. Why didn't you protect him? But then the teachers that do step in to protect the child are then like, well, why did you do this? Stromberg had written something a little while ago where in the his last year of high school, there was one student that was really terrible to the teacher. And so they decided to record it and show the parents. And the kid never did that again. But it's sad when it gets to a point that the only way to get students in trouble for behaviors like this is to get a video recording of it, because the
And we can't
parents
even
won't
do
believe
that.
it.
We're not, at least for me, we're not legally able to do that.
Well,
Yeah,
for
we're-
you, no, but the other students, yeah.
Yeah, if there is recording and somebody decides to turn it in, we could technically use that. But yeah, we're not allowed to do anything. Here, I think one of the things that I've learned with working with parents that has served me super well, and it's going to sound super manipulative, but I'm kind of a whatever it takes to help the students kind of
Yeah.
person. But one of the things that I've always tried to do is, every parent wants to be a good parent. There's not a parent that wants to be a bad one. So I kind of like insert these little I've learned to tell people what I want them to feel. So like I will say like all the time, I'll be like, and he's just not showing up for stuff. He's a great kid, but he's not doing his stuff. And I know you as a parent. You're a great parent, and I know that's not what you want for him. And so we need to work as a team here to make sure that he does what he needs to do, and it works.
Yes.
Every time.
That
It's
sounds like
never
a
not.
Destiny move.
It's never not worked.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, but that's basically what I do. I just make them act the way I want them to act by trying to get into that internal wanting to be a good parent thing. And maybe it's manipulative, but I'm also Italian, so it's fine. I came by it honestly. But at the same time, it's just like, it's kind of like that. I try to step over that line of conflict with them and be on their, let them know I'm on their side.
Hey, I'm on your side. We want the same
I'm
thing.
trying to help your kid, and I'm trying to help you in your relationship with your kid, and we can do this together and fix this, but I need your help. And they're always like, oh yeah, it's
because it's not
Teachers
wrong.
are
You do
great at
want,
manipulating.
you do want what's best for your kid. And Destiny, that was meant to
Right.
be a compliment, because that takes some skill.
Teachers are very manipulative. I mean, we have a lot of power when it comes to what we want. So if there's something that we want to get from the parents, like the support, then we say what we need to say, and we're able to get that taken care of. When it comes to the kids, if there's something that we want from the kid, we have a very tricky way of getting it, but we get it nonetheless. So,
Mommy? Sorry. Mommy?
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 Sorry.
No, that is not allowed.
Sofa gets what Sofa wants.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. I think a part of that comes down to, being able to understand people and learning how to influence them without, actually manipulating them. Like How to Win Friends and Influence People is a book that's 1,000,000 years old, but the stuff works. And when you're in a position like that where your hands are tied by so many different angles, whether it be policy or even insurance requirements, things like that, you use what you got to use to get the job done, because, these are important things that have to be done and dealt with on a daily basis that make huge differences to people's lives.
Very much so.
All right, so we're approaching our 2-hour mark, and that's usually when brains get fried. So I want to go off with one more question that is the most recent. Is how has the pandemic affected your ability to teach? And I
Rob,
know
you can go first on this one.
Rob's situation being probably the most difficult to get through, being that band remote is, I can't even imagine.
Nightmare.
And Sofa's in the in-classroom portion of it.
Yeah, I think when we were on total lockdown, virtual band is virtually useless. It's just not a real thing. It basically, like, kind of, I was talking about those formatives and summatives, right? It's that kind of that teaching. It's more monitoring whether they're practicing or not. And, I mean, statistics don't lie. Like the 70% in our district, and we have a well-to-do district, 70% of virtual students across the board failed, not just band students. So it was very difficult. And then once we were back, I think the hardest thing for me, because it was only a semester that we were virtual. Then we went back to 5 days a week at the beginning of last year, but we had to separate everybody. I couldn't have my bands fully together. I had to have them, we had to be more than 6 feet apart. We had to purchase bell covers
Oh wow.
Kids had to wear
Oh,
wear
goodness.
masks when they were not playing, and then when they were playing, they would like just basically lift it up and play. It was a big deal. I think the number one thing, because it's not that it's getting better, but it's like we're adapting to it better. And we're seeing our cases go way down in this county. And I think a lot of it has to do with the Delta variant kind of like having passed through. And you've either had it or you've resisted it at this point, I think, in the county, for those of us like out in the public. And so I think that, I think coming out of it, some things that I struggle with right now, still having to, be in a large space that I don't really get to rehearse in, like a gym, like I'm so used to like an auditorium, but it's just too tight. You have a 50-person band, each kid has a parent or two and maybe grandma and grandpa, and all of a sudden it's like, there's a lot of people in there, and our auditorium only seats like 300. It's criminally small. So, I think there's that, having to deal with that kind of stuff. I didn't get to travel and do overnights with marching band because I didn't want all the kids in one room sleeping, it's just because you can't wear a mask while you sleep. But I think the biggest thing now that I'm worried about is recruitment, because I used to take this like little instrument petting zoo to the elementaries and to the
Oh, I remember that.
and so like I would have these stations with each instrument, and I'd have students teach them. Well, we used to put the clarinet in your mouth, and then we would spray it down with a disinfectant spray, but we can't do that now. So I'm kind of struggling to figure out how the heck I'm going to do all that.
Right. And for anybody in chat who's not really familiar with what he's doing, like, because I remember getting ready to go into 5th grade, and we got sat down into the room. Now, we didn't have students teach us how to, but the band director for 5th and 6th grade would sit with us and have us try each of the instruments that we were interested in, and to see which one we did well at. I ended up going with trumpet, which was kind of a good thing because my dad played in high school, so he still had it when my sister decided to take it up. And she's about 6 years ahead of me, so we just were able to get another one, a used one, for inexpensive, and I ended up taking that up too. But you would try the different ones, and she'd spray it down, because somebody who can play a brass instrument isn't necessarily going to have the right kind of jaw setting, or embouchure is the correct term for playing a reed. It's very different on how you have to set your jaw, and it's just not natural for some students to go one way or the other. Yeah,
you have to, I try to balance a couple things. I try to balance how quickly, like how much passion is there for that instrument, how quickly they pick it up, is their anatomy closer to a successful anatomy for that instrument, and then what is their ability to purchase, rent, all that kind of stuff. I try to take all of those things into account when we do it, and so the more you get to see them and work with them and play with them, to get them there, the easier it is. If you just tell a kid pick an instrument, they can really struggle, and it sucks to be sucky. It sucks to suck. So, if you would have been a better, euphonium player, and somebody hands you an oboe, you're going to be like, man, I suck at this thing. I better go on to something else, because I'm just not musical,
Well,
and it kind of ruins it for the rest of the years,
does.
when they could have been doing something very musical and having that outlet, but they don't, because they didn't choose the right one for them.
Well, and there's also size too. Like, I was a skinny, short little twig in grade school. You're not going to fit me with a giant tuba. T, I'm guessing that you were always a taller kid in school.
Yeah,
So
I was
you
the
could handle
tallest
that.
kid, the biggest kid. Yeah,
So
and
you're
I have
not
a big
gonna,
mouth, so
you're
it
not-
helps.
So you're not going to stick a tiny little kid with a giant freaking tuba.
No.
That, at least, correct me if I'm wrong on that, Rob.
No, I mean, when they get older, we stop kind of body typing them, really. Like I had a gal that was very athletic, and she was kind of shorter, and she was really thin. Oh, that would be my daughter.
Munchkins.
But you know, she was like, I can handle it. I want to do it. And I was like, oh yeah, no worries. So I think but when they're little, like one of the things we'll do if a kid really wants to play trombone, you know, I'll ask him like, are your mom and dad short? You know, because they have to have a long arm, you know?
Right.
And if they are, I'll just be like, let's do euphonium. It's like literally the same instrument, but you have 3 buttons instead of a slide, you know?
Is that we call them like the marching trombone.
So there's, well, we've got like, so euphonium is like, it looks like a small tuba. Some people call it a baritone.
It's a baritone.
Oh, baritone. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Only fancy people call it a euphonium.
Well, you know,
Rob
I
is
have to
pretty
be
fancy.
fancy, you know.
Fancy.
I personally call them the pain in the asses that sat next to me.
Well, then you have because my Tulio tried to play trombone for a little while, and what I can imagine was frustrating for the teachers is their joke of the 8th position. Now, for people who don't know how trombone works, the 8th position means that that slider is completely off of your instrument.
Yeah.
I
It
could see
goes
him
to
living there.
7.
Yeah, it goes to 7. If you try to hit a quote-unquote 8th, that means, yeah, you're not even connected anymore.
I learned something new today.
It was also typically a very terrible sound to hear when it happened, because I heard it a couple times in band, that clang and clatter and somebody ducking down, trying to grab it. Because I don't know if they got something on there, but they slipped it and the clang, and oh geez.
Well, you had to grease it up so it would actually slide properly.
Yeah.
And if
Well,
you greased it up too much, whoops. Oh yeah.
Slid right out of there,
Giggity.
weren't paying attention, and
damn it.
there you go.
So Sofa, what are some of the problems, good or not necessarily problems, there might have been some upsides too, but how did you deal with the pandemic?
Well, I think there has been a huge upside, and that's just the flexibility that these kids have. They have been able to really go with emotions and really just keep at it. I think that's going to be hugely beneficial for them as they get older, get independent, start their careers. They will be able to kind of maneuver and still be in the mindset of, okay, I'm okay. I got through that pandemic years ago, but I'm still going to be okay because I can get through this. Kind of that mentality. That's what I definitely experienced last year, because it felt like the kids just wanted to just go through and get it done. Whatever it was, they just wanted to get it done.
Gotcha. Because I know
During
that
the lockdown was really difficult, though. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say that because I went from being like a high honor student in college, and then I tried to go to some online classes after that, and I almost failed out. You know, do you have students that their learning style really just does not work with a virtual learning setting?
Yes, there's a lot of kids. I'm included in this. When I was in college, I did the same thing. I hated online classes. It is not ideal for every student, but unfortunately, they had to all be that way when we were in that position. So lockdown was very difficult. There was a concern with the kids failing, so basically we had to pass everyone. We had no choice. And I think that set up a lot of the kids today that I have in my class with the expectation that it doesn't matter if they fail or not, they're still going to pass. And even though we're in this new normal where we're kind of reset to pre-pandemic times where they still have high expectations and we still have to meet certain standards and achieve certain things in class, they're still in the pandemic state of mind where they don't care. It doesn't matter. It's not going to affect them. And I wish that changed, because just today I was looking through all of my students, and 20 to 25% of them are failing. And we have less than a month left of school.
Wow.
So it's that same mindset that I think is really difficult to get out of, because they had 1 year where it was spring pandemic lockdown. So they passed everything. And then last year, it was a hodgepodge of online or not. And it was still very lenient given the time. And now it's, you have to work. And they don't know how to do that. because they had 2 years of quote unquote free years.
And
Now-
the maturity. Have you noticed that the
Yeah.
maturity level has dropped significantly?
Yes.
Like I've had so many kids like try to make inappropriate jokes with me, like just
Mhm.
curse in front of me, and I'm
Mhm.
like, we don't
Ooh,
do
no.
that here. I had
Yeah.
one kid, he said something and just used a curse word, and I was like, get off my field, and he was like,
Good.
what? And I was like, get off my field. We don't curse in this band. Leave. Where do I go? I'm like, I don't care.
Well,
Go
'cause-
discuss it with the principal. I don't care.
Well, because for anybody who has caught my stream before, I swear like a sailor here. But at work, it's that
Right.
whole appropriateness thing. I will
Right.
swear like a sailor here and in my streams, but at work, I do not use that language at all because
Same
it's
with me.
and it's not appropriate for a classroom setting either. Do you think it's because things have been so lax over the last year and a half that the kids think it's okay to behave that way around you?
Lack of supervision,
Yes.
and then an inappropriate view of the world because of social media.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's those two things.
And the lack of supervision because their parents aren't usually home when they're supposed to be online in school and classes.
Well, because
So
the
there's
parents still
no
got to make a
accountability.
living.
Yeah, there's zero accountability. There's there's less respect than there was before. And I think it's just that culmination of that before hit pandemic, and it's suddenly worse because of that. So
Yeah.
it definitely has an influence on it.
Well, hopefully, as things get to the new normal, as we're calling it, that in-person interaction, because you guys also lead by example, and I know that especially from you, Rob. Just seeing your streams, and I can imagine you being a lot the same, like for your family-friendly environment and streams, like acting the same way around your students.
Yeah,
So that's a huge way of leading by example.
I'm a little tougher. Like when I step on the podium, the kids are silent. Like they, I'm a lot more type A. But I think the side that you see of me on the stream is kind of like when I'm, one-on-one or with a small group of kids and we're not in rehearsal. But you have to be really type A. You have to be really organized, and you have to be. They have to have a healthy respect for you too. So it's a balance for sure.
Well, that's how it was when I was in school too, because the stepping on the podium means it's time to get to work.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
if
exactly.
You didn't get quiet, you were in trouble.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they just don't
Yeah.
not get quiet anymore. they just
Oh,
do it.
no.
Yeah.
And in a classroom setting, even if as for my I'm standing all class period, they'll still be talking, they'll still be no matter what. So that kind of, and I think that's the practice that you instill if you have a certain position that you expect them to be A, B, and C, and they do that, that's just built over time.
Yeah.
And that's that respect they have for you.
I don't know how you do year-to-year teaching. Like I honestly don't. Like there's just something about, because my freshmen are my worst, that
Mhm.
at behavior, and partially because they're freshmen, but also just because, I haven't
They're
had much
young.
time with them. Yeah, they're young. I haven't had much time with them, but by the time they go through and I have 4 years with them, it's totally different. I always try to tell them too, like, I have really high expectations for you, and you want that from me. You should be waiting for me to start class, not the other way around. I mean, you're here, you're spending all your time here, and you took band, you pay money for an instrument. Some of you take private lessons. So do you want to be, you want me to be waiting on you? You want to waste your time, or do you want to get the most out of my time from me?
Right.
So
No, I think that's
Exactly.
an excellent way of putting it towards them. Because, I mean, for your situation, Rob, you got, for the most part, you get the same student about every day for 4 years. Versus Sofa, where, like, how often do you get the same student, Sofa? Is it just mainly once in a semester for their entire 4 years?
If they don't pass the prior year, I sometimes see them again. Outside of that,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
new every year.
So that's
Sometimes it
that's an entirely more difficult position to get respect from the students for that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, going back to like how some students aren't Like, do you have some students that they want to do well in school, but the online learning isn't for them? Do you have any that reach out to you for additional assistance?
I would say so. I mean, there that select few that still just want to do well, of course, they're gonna do whatever it takes. They'll spam email me just to make sure that they get questions answered. So
Okay.
yeah, they'll try and do whatever it takes to get a higher grade because they want to do well.
It's good to see that there's still students out there that are in that position. Like, the online isn't for me, but I still want to do well at this. But just seeing the dynamics change from when we were in school to what it is now, and also remembering the stories that I grew up with Mama telling me about from what was expected of students when she was in school, as well as when she was a teacher back when I was like probably too young to remember what classrooms were really like. I have vague memories of like first and second grade, but not enough to give like a true opinion on how school was back then. And also, I mean, you're too young back then to really understand these kind of dynamics. I feel like it's really changed a lot for what teachers have to do and what they have to put up with, especially when integrating technology even more into the classrooms. Which means that the students, and the districts are always a little bit behind. You got to duck out. Thank you, Rob, for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I loved it. It's always nice to talk about it, and it's really nice when people that are outside of the profession like actually have a care and a want to know. It makes me feel good, so I appreciate it.
Not a problem. As I was telling Tess,
side of things too.
Yeah, as I was telling Tess earlier, I think this is a subject we need to talk about more in order for things to change for the better. Yeah,
for sure. And also thank you, Mel, for just being such a good friend and a supporter of me and the channel on Twitch and even outside of that. I just appreciate you. So thank you.
Not a problem at all. I don't think I would have found you if it weren't for like Destiny and LJ.
Destiny, you're next. I hope you feel better, my love.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, you guys take care.
Catch you later, man.
Take care, Rob.
Bye-bye.
So MamaDingo here is saying, like, she says, we wore dresses to school, shorts underneath to hide our undies, didn't wear pants to school till high school, and all teachers were treated with much respect. And I can see that, because that was starting to fade by the time I got to school. Like, yeah, there wasn't that kind of dress code or anything, but there was still the teacher, treat your teacher with respect, because the kids that didn't were seen as the problem children amongst the rest of the students, and you didn't want to be a problem child. And now I see it today as it's cool to be the delinquent, when really you're setting yourself up for failure. I mean, these are people who have dedicated their lives to your education, and good education is the first building block, I feel, to build a better society. If you have the education that you need to create inventors and people who just try to make life better in general, or support the systems that already exist.
We're responsible for the doctors that see you when you're sick. We're responsible for the lawyers that protect you from wrongful crimes. We're responsible for making sure that your life is fulfilled outside of just what you're experiencing
your
right
mechanics,
now.
your electricians, your everything.
But kids don't understand that. I think that's because they don't really see into the future. They're all about the now, which is why they're getting into trouble, which is why they're seen in a certain view, which is why they're really supposed, like, they're the popularity on TikTok and all that stuff. It's all about the now. What's the now? What's the present? And that's it. They don't see a few years from now, 10 years from now. Like, what do I want?
The thing is, too, is that as a parent, you don't have to talk to your kids about it in those terms. Mama never talked to us about that. But she always would kind of hint and ask questions of, well, if you do that, what's going to happen if ABC? You know, to make you think about
it. Into that future, right?
So there are ways to kind of as Rob was saying, kind of manipulate it to get them to start thinking about,
Yeah.
because if they are living in the now and they're all about themselves, we'll start asking questions about them, you know, and then play devil's
Influence is the
advocate.
kinder word.
Yeah, be an influencer to your child, and you know, get them
Fuck
thinking
the whole
about it.
Instagram influencers and the social media influencers. Teachers are the original influencers that make more of a difference in the world and kids everywhere.
You know
They're
what?
losing
From
some
kindergarten all
ground
the way
there,
through college.
but they shouldn't be.
I don't think I
Agreed.
could have said it better. I think that's an amazing way to put it. You know, because Mama would also play devil's advocate, because like if I gave just a snarky remark about, oh, it's not a big deal, I'll just do this, and then she'll play devil's advocate of, well, what if you can't, or what if it doesn't work out that way? So that also sparks the critical thinking.
It's all
All
about
right.
using that brain.
So Destiny, do you have any other questions you'd like to ask Sofa?
No, I think we covered a pretty wide range. Like I said, in school, I wasn't the best kid. I didn't pay much attention. So most of my stuff is just what we've already covered.
And Mama, you're not a meanie poo. I use these as very positive examples because that's how much of an influence you have had on me and how well that worked. Because, I mean, I wasn't a straight A student. I wasn't popular. I wasn't a troublemaker. I was just a quiet kid in the corner for the most part. And Mama's
Little
laughing really
wallflower.
hard. But it helped me to do better. And I think if there was more of it, you know, I think we'd be in a much better place in general.
Agreed.
Yep, agreed.
Pay teachers
Excellent.
more, and suddenly things happen. You would be amazed how much shit goes on.
Dave, it worked for the most part. Dave, you get to see me when I just let go. I'm completely different when I'm at work. Like, even when I'm talking with my coworkers, I'm different than I am now. And then from when I'm talking to my coworkers and I'm having to call one of our providers and put on my customer service voice.
Oh yeah.
But Destiny, you know, you said you weren't the best kid in school. If you were able to go back in time and tell your younger self some tips or something for school, do you know what that would be?
I mean, while I didn't pay too much attention in high school, it didn't affect me as a person today. That's the whole thing. It's like I just kind of went through the motions of getting through school and, you know, immediately was working out of high school. Like I was working in high school, a job that was actually full time and also going to school. So it was just kind of like a motion of like, let me get through school so I can actually start making money kind of situation.
Gotcha.
So no, not really, just because like
It worked for you.
yeah, it was very boring time for me, school.
No, Croc, my customer service voice is not a Lyra.
Please no.
I'd get murdered.
I think
Yes.
you should do
No.
it once in a while just for fun.
No, I am in a so I only have an associate's. I am working with people who have doctorates, and many people on my team at Self for IT that have their masters. I'm not going to make a fool out of myself by talking like a Lyra. I'll do it for you guys. I'm not doing it for work.
Yes.
Spread the Alira.
Oh my goodness.
But I mean, Destiny, it worked for you because I know T said that he never wanted to go to college or anything. And, you know, college as it is today is not for everybody because I think they build a lot of fluff in there. That is not, because I know that even from courses that I took in my junior college didn't apply to the real world. And
Yeah.
definitely the courses that I took as bridge courses did not apply to the real world. So I think they need to bring back trade schools and apprenticeships that everything you do applies to the real world. And I think it would make careers more available to kids that lecture halls just aren't for them. But they were smart. They can do it. They just need that different approach.
I would agree.
Or maybe have those prerequisite courses, like all the ones that you have to take your first or second year or whatever of college, be these life skill type courses. How to do taxes, how to cook, how to clean, or whatever. Like these things that you have to know by the time you're that age. That you can easily test out of too.
Oh, and some of those even just for a high school level too. But like because one of the courses that I did take was two courses of technical writing, which for my job is necessary. So what I said about the trade schools and everything else, my grandfather was saying the same thing, and he had a doctorate in education. And Fluffy says that he hates how everybody is trying to say that you need to go to college to get ahead in life. And it's not necessarily college. You need some kind of, because like T, you've got a certification for work. So to me, you've gone beyond what your basic high school education is to get a certificate to do what you do.
I've been through some things.
That to me, that is a form of education.
Yeah, whether it's on the job or I mean, there's a bunch of different things. Micro and the Micro Works Foundation, is about training. Getting beyond what when you walk out of schooling, because overall you're not prepared for a lot of things, and some people think they are, and it doesn't work out quite so well. But getting out there and doing things hands-on with people, in the trades and stuff like that, it's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it. Some people, school's the path that works for them. I know for me personally, I was done with school. I didn't want anything to do with it. I was very smart, but the requirements for the schooling system for me was just a pain in the ass. Like having to do all this busy work and write paper after paper of stuff that you don't really give a shit about. For me, that's not how I work. So it was kind of pointless for that to do those things.
And Rob says here as well that everyone should continue growing. That's the key. And that's so very true, because even my grandparents, they would take, Mama, help me remember what the acronym was. ILR, learning in retirement, basically. They would have, they would get together as a group, and they would have special guests and everything, and they would learn about different subjects, even in retirement. And it didn't matter how you learned. It was the basis of that you kept learning. Oh, it was ILR. Okay.
I've never even heard of that.
It was, I don't know if it's available everywhere. I know that it was up where my grandparents had moved to after retirement up north.
Okay.
But I think that is all we've got for today. I want to thank Rob again for joining us. And Sofa, thank you for joining us too.
For having me.
No problem. And thank you, Mama, for the information that you help provide in and out of stream.
The online submissions.
Yes. Because I do think I love getting the different perspectives. Because Sofa, you were an in-classroom teacher. Rob is a band director, which is a completely different environment. And Mama had a wide range. She was a kind of like a teacher's aide and a substitute for a while. She also worked as a teacher at an alternative learning school for students that had been suspended, but they needed to continue education. And she also taught Title I for grade school. And she's also, having that generational difference as well to see how things have been evolving and changing for good or bad. Because I don't think a lot of people realize everything that is involved in being a teacher.
They say that those who can't do teach, which is definitely not true.
And I think that's entirely the opposite.
Yes.
People that
those who can do.
Those that can teach, because you need to be able to know how to do it in order to teach it.
It's a unique kind of person to be able to reach out to a variety of different people and connect with them. And we're lucky to have some awesome teachers in the community.
Oh, definitely. Mama says those who can teach, those that can't should get the hell out of the way.
That's exactly it.
Yes, ma'am.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
But thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you, T, for being our peanut gallery. Destiny, we have a large list of different podcasts that we can do. I know we haven't really had time to talk in the last couple weeks, but we will be looking at that list together and figuring out what we're going to do for our next stream in 2 weeks.
Yep.
What are some options?
It's a secret.
Super secret.
Jeez.
Well, we
Top
do have
secret.
our reoccurring series. We have a couple of them, like our mysteries, Unsolved Mysteries one. Conspiracies. We haven't touched on conspiracies in a while, so maybe that'll be a good one.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have our Around the World series, which my list is just getting bigger. of places that we can go visit, and I'm so fascinated by it. But thank you, T, for putting the YouTube link there. Hopefully next weekend, this podcast will be edited and placed on YouTube. I've already got the Halloween one up from 2 weeks ago. And you can check out all of our previous podcasts up until our 420 podcast. I didn't get to save any that came before that.
That's all right.
All right. Thank you, everybody, again, and have a wonderful evening.